New day, new early day. The clock's still messed up, but whatever. I think about 5 o'clock, 5:30, we both start crapping right out. But it'll pass. Now, I don't know if anybody saw it, but I sliced my thumb open. And I posted up the video of Ruby going to town on my thumb. It's like, that's kind of weird. But she persisted to like yesterday and last night. I just have band-aids around it, and she's just obsessed with my hand like it's a chunk of steak. She doesn't want to eat or anything, but then I finally let her just lick my thumb. And she's looking at it, and all of a sudden, she uncontrollably, obviously, her mouth started going like that. It's really weird. I videotaped it. And obviously I don't know enough about dogs, but that's a real odd characteristic move they do, whatever you want to call it. A lot of people say, no, she's trying to heal you. And apparently they have enzymes in their saliva or something that helps heal. But it's really bizarre to watch, right? To the point, she jumped up on the bed this morning, and I had my hand, she went for my hand. I'm like, would you leave me alone? She's just going up my hand, so I put my hand under the covers, and all of a sudden, she smelt it through the frickin' quilt, and was like, trying to get on my thumb. Really weird. Anyway, I'm almost ready to start communicating with the world again. This isn't really communicating back. I don't go back and forth here, right? I just do my thing and share these voices. And I'm just kidding. There's a lot of people who want to get a hold of me. A lot. And it's kind of overwhelming in a way. You just get... Because we just came home to a bit of hell. We came home to a little bit of hell. And we're dealing. It's all good. And then it's a little overwhelming yet, and not having proper sleep, and you don't have any patience, and your brain's kind of scrambled. And then you got about 50 people demanding you get in touch with them and speak with them, and it's like, oh, not yet. Oh, so I've been ignoring my phone. Just saying. But I'm ready. Today is the day. Because once I start, it doesn't stop. You only knew. So, here I am. It's still dark out. It's early. I think I woke up at 4 o'clock or something. So this afternoon's going to be interesting, right? And we need some voices to be heard. As many as I can. And it's funny, I shared on the community page a discussion between Russell Brand and Tucker Carlson. Regardless of what stance or what they have done in their past, they've both grown. And they have been focusing on what's important. And I believe them to be true, honest people. Teach their own. You don't have to agree with me. Don't care if you do or not. And I listened to them when I woke up at 4 o'clock. I was trying to find something to put the earbud in and listen to. And I listened to them. And they had a lot of very handy... They had a conversation that I could relate to. And one thing that helped me out was they were talking about the grief that Russell Brand has received from his government for speaking truth, and from Pfizer and Moderna. And they've gone at him trying to annihilate his life. And Tucker was saying to him, basically, Tucker said the same thing happened to him too, right? Anybody who goes against the establishment, you're in for it. And what Tucker said to him was, do you regret what you're doing? Did you ever think about quitting speaking truth openly? And then he looked at Tucker and said flat out, come on, we both know that we can't quit. It's not an option. And right away I kind of fully, just that one little sentence right there made me go, I can relate. Quitting's not an option for many people. For me anyways, I can't do it. I've been attacked, as you know, I've been attacked since day one. And I came back. I've come back pretty hot and heavy in their face, right? But I can't let this slide. I cannot quit. And I could absolutely relate to that one small exchange those two had. And I went, bingo, right there with you. Can't quit. It's not an option to quit. And stop sharing people's truth and honesty. Anyway, I'm rambling. Still a little frazzled, but yeah. You want to go into my community page and listen to what those guys had to say to each other, you'll probably find it quite interesting. And if for some reason you can't stand those guys, okie dokie. You don't need to announce it on my channel and blow a gasket. Just don't watch. It's too easy. But the choice is there for anybody who may be curious. And those guys both openly acknowledge their screw-ups in life while growing. Bravo, right? But it's a very worthy listen, what they had to say. That's in the community page. Now, what do we got here? Oh, here's another, coincidentally, here's another, okay, what do I got? Mark this as red. Something behind you. I think we just did one of these yesterday, didn't we? Steve, in your video of you titled, My Night and Some Hair-Raising Experiences. That's the title of my YouTube video, and that was when I left camp last September. In September 2023, I think I saw something behind you at the 17-minute 48 seconds. 17-minute 48 seconds mark. It was on the right of you while looking at the video. I have included two pictures, one with nothing there before and the one with what I see circled. Thank you for sharing people's experiences. Sincerely, Betty. All right, so I got a couple photos. Let's have a looky. Don't know what that would be in a circle. And then it appears that something's changed back there in the second photo. But you know what else I see right away that's changed is the angle of the sun. The angle of the sun has moved a lot from one picture to the next, so that might have something to do with it. You never know. I don't know. There's a lot of things people see on my videos that I don't see. Now, can I get away with doing this way? Let's try it. Try it. I don't know if you're seeing that or not. We'll hold it steady. Because believe me, this saves a lot of time. Because I have to load the photos onto Dropbox and then I have to get them. Anyway, here, let's try this first. If it doesn't work, then I'll go through the routine of putting the photos onto the video. There you go. Anybody? Some people might see something there blatant in your face. Some won't. I don't. I see what I see in that photo, in those photos myself, is the sun changing direction drastically between photos, which would make me think, all right, well, that's going to change the shit out of a lot of stuff for being there and not there later on. But you never know. Share it. I appreciate you watching and sharing that. This is titled Quick Sighting. Hi, Steve. My name is Robert, and I've been following your channel for over 3 years now. I've seen many structures in my area of Maple Falls, Washington, and have pictures of some. I also have a picture of a 16-inch footprint in the mud. Said footprint has a small 4-inch footprint in the middle of bigger footprint. I've heard things in these woods many times, mostly big animals crashing through the forest. I always hike with my Australian Shepherd and Husky. Deer, bear, coyotes, and elk I can always tell because the Husky immediately gives chase and stays gone for 5 to 15. Sometimes, however, he is not interested in giving chase, but rather he jumps behind me. I always wonder what that's about. Anyway, back to what I saw driving home from work at 4:30 a.m. in August of 2023. I was on Highway 547 northbound, driving with low beams because I had just passed a car a couple miles back, cruising at 40 miles per hour. At my 11 o'clock and 150 yards away was a house with outside lights on behind it, and on my 10 o'clock is an outbuilding with an external light. What caught my eye was the lights going out in succession from left to right towards the road in front of me. I thought, what is that? A horse running in front of the lights? It was moving fast. I then realized that at the speed it was moving, it had to have made it to the road. By then I was maybe 70 yards away. I turned on my high beams thinking I might have to brake for a horse. That is when I got my 3-second view of the thing stepping over the ditch and into the tree line. I did not see its head because by the time I figured out what I was looking at, the head and shoulders were obscured by brush. What I did see was very big, from the armpits down about 6 feet. Now, I always wondered how I would react during such an experience. I thought maybe surprise or fear, being a believer. I did neither. I was in complete denial. I tried to explain it away by many means. I've only recently told one person and got pushback. I now accept what I saw and would be better for not seeing it again. I'm not going to let it come between my time in the woods with my dogs, but I do have my head on a swivel. Thank for all you do and keep on truthing. Robert. Okay, man. There you go. Welcome to the club. Welcome to the club. And I think you wonder what that's all about, the dog going behind you being scared. You know. We know. You know what it is. There you go. I've never even numbered how many experiences have come in here. Imagine what number that must be. Here's another one. My short experience. Hi, Steve. I live in southern New Hampshire, USA. I spent my childhood in the woods. I wasn't afraid of anything. I explored caves, bunkers, and rivers all by myself. The more dangerous or scary, the better. As I've grown older and become a mom, I've lost my bravery, especially in the woods. In the summer of 2021, I spent some time with a friend exploring and camping the White Mountains of New Hampshire. He's an outdoorsman, and I always carry, so I wasn't concerned. We camped a lot that summer with no issues. And one night, we made a last-minute decision to camp in the bed of his truck at Bede Falls, which is off of a dark and narrow mountain road in center Sandwich, New Hampshire. We hiked a bit, then went to bed around 9:30 p.m. We were exposed except for a mosquito net, so I was more nervous than usual, and I kept my pistol in hand. You slept with it in your hand? I'm just being a clown. As I was trying to fall asleep, I could swear I was watching small lights not too far from me, hopping from tree branch to tree branch. It was pitch black otherwise, so I don't know what I was seeing, but I decided I was just imagining it, and I closed my eyes. I was trying to avoid freaking myself out. I covered my head with the blanket and I fell asleep quickly. Around 3 a.m., I woke up out of a dead sleep with the most intense feeling of terror. My heart was pounding so hard I couldn't hear anything else. It felt like something was inches away from me on my side of the truck. I didn't dare look, so I kept my head covered with the blanket. I laid awake for a while, waiting for something awful to happen, but it never did. Since I couldn't rationalize the feeling of fear, I went back to sleep. The next morning, I tried searching for any sign of an animal or a human, but there was nothing. Later, I asked my friend if he'd ever come across anything strange in all of his years hunting in these woods, and he said no. He seemed really confused. He had no idea what I was talking about. I figured maybe New Hampshire doesn't have the same creatures as the West Coast. When I went home, I did some research, and there have been quite a few sightings here in New Hampshire. Some are not far from where I've been camping. I didn't feel so crazy anymore, but I also wasn't comforted by that information. Thanks to you and your audience for being open and honest, and for sharing your experiences. God bless. All right. Did you say to leave your name or not? Well, let's use your first name, Maddie. Appreciate you sending that in. More lights in the forest. More lights in the forest moving around. Said tens of thousands of other human beings. There's no ignoring it. It's happened. It's happening, and it's real. This is titled, Kill a Sabe, Be Dead in 7 Years. Hi, Steve. Hey, over the years I've heard, at least 3 times, that according to some indigenous folklore, if you kill a Sabe, you will be dead within 7 years. Now that we know Sabes are radioactive, perhaps that is the basis for the claim. I know if I killed a Sabe, I would want to check it out rather than leave it lay and get out of there. And now I'm just wondering if there is more truth to the claim than just superstition. Please share your thoughts. Take care. Carl F. Warden. Carl? I don't know, man. You know what? The radiation thing, I do not believe myself that they are radioactive as a whole. I do believe myself that a lot of these beings who have frequented the nuclear facilities have picked up radiation from that activity of theirs, whatever they're doing, and passed it on to a few unfortunate human beings. You know what? What do they say? If you walk under a ladder, it's bad luck. If you smash a mirror, it's 7 years bad luck. So I have a feeling possibly that's where that came from, because imagine how many human beings it would take to kill a Sasquatch person, a Sabe person. How many human beings it would take to kill them to come up with the average 7 years, you're out of here. It's going to be quite a few, right? And we haven't heard of quite a few deaths of these people caused by humans. We've definitely heard a handful for sure, but that's all I got to say. Those are my thoughts on that. 7 years dead. I don't know. My gut says superstition, folklore, but who's to say? I don't know. There's a lot of crazy shit going on, right? Thanks for sending that in. You never know. Keep the wheels turning, right? Keep the wheels turning. That's what we need to do here. Get everybody thinking for themselves and keep the wheels turning. This is titled Bella from Sweden Again with Pictures. Hi Steve, hope you're doing fine. A few weeks ago I saw a video from you named, quote, terrified in Sweden as encounters rage on, end quote. You can imagine my surprise when I realized that it was my own story that had finally reached you. Thank you for reading it. I hope someone else was helped by hearing about what I and my sons have been through. I don't know what happened to the photos, but I'm sending them now, and hopefully you'll get them. All right. Thank you for sending that in. These last few years since that first experience has been staggering. I've gone from being afraid to being calmer and more peaceful with my new reality, you might say. A lot of new things have happened, and I don't even know where to start. I mean, a lot of new things has happened. But I'm keeping some to myself since I don't want anyone to think that I've lost my mind. Too late. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. No, you've lost your mind here. This is the safest place to do it that I'm aware of. Don't keep anything to yourself. Well, I shouldn't say that. Go with your gut. Make your choice correct with your gut. One weird fact is that both my oldest son and I can literally feel when the forest people, as we now call them, are around. That's common, so can I. Without a doubt, you can feel and sense. One evening, I had this ominous feeling that someone not so friendly was lurking around his house. So I called him to let him know. But he already knew. He had called in the dog and locked the doors in an attempt to keep his family safe. He later told me that after about 30 minutes, the ominous feeling went away and the forest started making sounds again, and that the air felt lighter. Do I believe that every Bigfoot is bad or dangerous? Of course not, but I trust my gut instinct. And my gut was telling me to be aware of the presence that time and that I had to warn my son. I still feel a bit nervous with my eldest and his family living in the middle of nowhere, but maybe that's a good thing considering how the world is right now. And with things just getting worse by the minute. After the first experience I had with my youngest son, when we saw a Bigfoot on the side of the road, and that weird dog-like thing I saw in the forest, things were calm for a few months, until I was woken up one night by my bed being shaken. I stayed put for a few minutes, waiting for it to stop. But when the shaking continued, I called for my son to come and see it for himself, and he was just as puzzled as I was. And he tried everything to get the bed to stop shaking. He moved it a bit and made sure that the legs of the bed wasn't crocked, but the bed just wouldn't stop shaking. See, that creeps. I'm getting goosebumps right now because that shit freaks me out. There's no railway close by, and we don't get earthquakes, and even if we did, then everything would just shake, not just my bed. It felt and looked like someone invisible was shaking it. I refused to stay in my room that night, so I took my little dog with me and slept on the couch, still hearing the bed move inside my room until I fell asleep. In the morning, everything was back to normal. Oh my God, that's creepy. No, thank you. Ugh. Nope. In the afternoon, it was Saturday, so we were both at home. I made some tea and set the table for fika. Fika is us Nordic folks having a coffee or tea with some treats, like, for example, cookies or cinnamon buns, and lit a candle just to make it extra cozy. I called for my son, and of course our little dog, who also wanted a tea or two. And all of a sudden, all hell broke out in the forest behind our home, and we could hear a cat scream in sheer agony. My son was up and out the door before I could even grasp what was happening. The noises coming out from the forest was horrifying, and we kept looking at each other, wondering why more people wasn't coming out, wondering what was happening. Were we the only ones hearing it, or what? We could hear heavy footsteps running inside the tree line, and the poor cat kept screaming. Our own big black cat, that is usually not afraid of anything, was sitting next to the front door looking completely terrified. A few moments later, the cat in the woods sounded like he was being choked, and everything went quiet apart from heavy footsteps and sounds of bushes and trees being forced out of the way. We went back inside, making sure that our cat was inside, too, before locking the door, and stood by the window for a while trying to see if we could see anything coming out of the tree line. And suddenly my son asked me to look at the candle that was still lit, and it was flickering, like it would in heavy wind, but the windows were closed. I blew out the candle, and we had our fika in silence. The experience made us look twice every time we stepped out or had to take that short walk to the car. Do you think? How about walking in the house? I was afraid most of the time after that, and often felt like someone was lurking in the woods, watching us through the window. We heard noises sometimes, grunts and heavy breathing, but there's both deer and moose in there too, close to the tree line, so we hoped it was all just natural noises coming out of the woods. Then one night, maybe 5 or 6 weeks later, I was laying in bed scrolling my phone, at the same time worrying about the creature in the woods, when I suddenly heard a dark, rumbling voice next to the bed. And this part is so difficult to explain. It was like it was 3 men talking at the same time, but I think it was just one man sounding like 3 men standing in a triangle form, speaking at the same time. Sounds crazy, I know, and it is almost impossible to describe, but that is what it sounded like. They said just one phrase in English. We rebuked him. I was surprised, but managed to say, "Thank you," out loud before I stumbled out of the bed, rushing into my son's room where he was sitting playing video games, telling him about what had just happened. He just looked and said, "Thank God for that. I don't care who it was that was just talking to you, as long as the creature in the woods is gone." That is how used we have become of strange things happening. LOL. I understood what rebuked meant, but I still had to look it up to be sure. Of course, I wondered for a while who he was who spoke to me, and why he spoke in English and not in my mother tongue, but I am forever grateful for the help he provided us. Thankfully, everything has been calm in the woods outside our home since then, and the cats, we have a few more now, is constantly playing in there, not showing any sign of fear. Holy shit, right? New Year's Eve 2021 was spent at my oldest with the whole family gathered. We had a lovely time with little ones running around playing, and us grown-ups talking and laughing, having a good time. It was about 10:30 in the evening, too early for anyone to be firing off any firecrackers yet, and suddenly we heard a slow and steady drumming coming out of the woods. My youngest and I looked at each other, and I could see my daughter-in-law freeze. Everyone else was just continuing laughing and talking, taking for granted that someone somewhere had just started celebrating early. I've never felt more vulnerable than I did right then and there. Everyone in my family was there. Everyone I love and means the world to me, in a cabin in the woods, far away from anyone to hear if something was going to happen. All I could think of was one of the episodes where you read a story about someone else who once heard drums in the forest. I'm not a bit ashamed of admitting that I was terrified. At the time, I couldn't show my fear since I didn't want to frighten my grandchildren. I never prayed so hard in my life that the drums were just some stupid teens goofing off somewhere, or were the forest people having a celebration of their own, not planning to harm us. My daughter-in-law, my youngest son, and I all heard the drums, and we were all bothered by them. Nothing happened to us that night, and for that I'm forever grateful, but I hope I never hear those drums again. Am I saying that it was the forest people playing the drums? No, I do not. But who else will go out in the forest late at night just to play drums all alone in the middle of nowhere? I'm just wondering. I don't know if you remember that I told you about my oldest son seeing a Bigfoot just a few meters from his house where he was outside one day. The pictures show him standing where the Bigfoot stood, and the other guy is my son-in-law standing where my son stood when he saw that Bigfoot. That is how close he came to it. You can see how close to the house it stood, and that he, my son, clearly saw that it was a young male, full view of both the bathroom window as well the kitchen window. At first, my oldest talked about the experience from time to time, and he didn't seem to be that bothered about it, but a few months later, he fell into a deep depression that took him quite some time to recover from. He felt cheated about the fact that we are not being told about these beings. Hear, hear. That the government, of course, knows the truth, but is willing to put families at risk of being hurt by not telling the public. He had bought a house in the middle of the forest. Had he bought a house in the middle of the forest, had he known about these beings? Probably not. Still, none of our experiences have been violent in any way towards us. There's one thing bothering us, though. My grandson sometimes hears people talking to him when he is outside playing. He is never left alone. His parents are always nearby, but they do not hear the voices. I asked him about it one day, and the explanation he gave me was, quote, "Sometimes they sound like my mom or dad, and sometimes they sound like Grandpa. They ask me to come with them to the forest, but I never do. Sometimes they sound a bit angry, almost demanding me to go with them." I made him promise me to run inside when it happens, and to never, ever walk into the forest alone, and to never even answer the one speaking to him. I even bought him a cross to wear around his neck to hopefully keep him safe. Despite everything that has happened, both I and my youngest son spent a lot of time in the forest last summer picking mushrooms and berries, something I thought would never happen again, but I can't fear the woods anymore. But every time before we walked into the forest, I spoke out loud or in my head to the forest people, telling them we meant no harm, and that we were just there to pick mushrooms. One day my son came walking out of the forest telling me that all of a sudden he had heard a dark voice saying, "Inte dat," which means, "not in that direction." He just answered back, "Okay, thanks for telling me. Can I go to the creek?" And when no one answered him back, he took that as a sign that it was okay for him to walk to the creek, so he did, and everything went fine. I've even been out picking mushrooms with my grandchildren, something I thought impossible after my first experience. Lately, I've thought a lot about my own childhood and how I actually used to fear the woods. I remember being told that when I was about 4 years old, my dad, my siblings, and I went out to cut a Christmas tree. As soon as my father walked into the forest, I panicked and started crying, begging him to come back. The only reason I could give him was that they don't want us there. They get angry and can hurt us. I had no clue who they were. I only knew in my heart that someone or something very dangerous was hiding in the woods and did not want us there. My siblings got mad at me and called me weird and threatened to leave me there all alone. I was so relieved seeing my father coming out of the forest unharmed. The whole way home, I kept looking behind me, making sure no one was following us. A few years later, again out in the woods with my family, I refused to go into the ferns. And the explanation I gave that time was that, quote, they are hiding amongst the ferns, looking at us, and they can drag one of us away without the others even noticing it, end quote. Again, I had no idea about who they were, just that there was someone or something there. Was that just my vivid imagination, or did I really sense a presence of any kind? I don't know, and never will. All I know is that I have never felt at peace in nature, but I still find it extremely beautiful. My father, on the other hand, loved the woods. He spent most of his time there, but he had his rituals. When he came back home, walking up to the house, he always turned around to look at the trees one last time before taking the last steps up to the house. Then he touched the same branch of maple tree every time, rubbed a leaf between his fingers, like he thanked it or something. I wish that I'd asked him, while he was still alive, what that was all about. But he was a very private man. I can't help but wonder if he knew more than he could tell. He took me with him sometimes. I even had my own little axe, and I remember him constantly looking around, when maybe he should have been more worried about a 5-year-old swinging axe. Sorry, when he should have been more worried about a 5-year-old swinging an axe, LOL. I mean, we don't have bears to watch out for. They live further up north. Apart from that, we do not have any dangerous animals to watch out for, except maybe wild boar and lynx that I can think of, but lynx are not a common sight. And I've seen one lynx in my lifetime, so that's all. It's strange, but I was never afraid as long as I had my father with me. Did anyone else join us? Sorry. Did anyone else join us? Then the fear stepped in. And if I'm being totally honest, with the risk of hurting anyone, perhaps the only time I have felt vulnerable or felt some form of danger being at my oldest son's home is when my son-in-law has been there too. I don't know why I feel that way. He's a kind man and takes good care of his family, and I really hope that my daughter never hears this, but you remember the drums I told you about? At the time, I felt deep in my soul that they were meant for him, my son-in-law. But how could I ever explain or tell him that? Now I'm keeping that to myself, apart from you and your followers, I guess, which is around the globe. In conclusion, I just want to tell you about something a male nurse told me one night at work. He had some problems with his young son, saying that the boy was too afraid to go to the bathroom alone anymore after an incident that happened a few weeks earlier when the boy had gone to the bathroom, as usual, before going to bed. Suddenly, he had started screaming like someone tried to kill him. And when his father rushed to see what was going on, the boy kept pointing to the window, talking about a big, hairy, naked, blonde man walking past the window, looking in at him. I don't know what to do. It sounds crazy, but my son is adamant that what he's telling me is the truth. But the bathroom is on the second floor. There's no way that someone could be that tall, the nurse told me. We were not alone, so I am ashamed to say that I kept quiet and didn't mention my own experience. I can't tell you how bad I feel about that. In my pathetic defense, I already had a reputation of being different, weird, or conspiracy theorist, or whatever one finds to call me, since I am openly pro-life, and as we are called nowadays, an anti-vaxxer. I often think about that little boy. I often think about that little boy, though, and I won't make the mistake of being quiet again. That's all for this time. Have a wonderful 2024 and take care out there. Bella. Wow. There's the photo with the two. I might have to put this into the video, I'm guessing. We'll try it this way. Now you can see there's a guy right here and a guy up there by the color of the barn, all right? So that's how close he was to the being standing right there. You seeing that? Hope so. Oops, blanked out there. And the next photo is of the other photo included. Wow, that's a lot. There's so much there. There's a lot that you shared here with all of us that is solid patterns amongst many other people around the globe. Except for the shaking bed part. That's not so common as well. The candle flicking inside without any wind. That creeped the shit out of me. I just don't... Maybe, I wonder if it's because when my older sister, maybe, possibly, or somebody was babysitting me, and when I was little, we watched The Exorcist. It scared the living shit out of me. I'm just not into that stuff. And the shaking bed, I mean, that's everybody's worst frickin' nightmare, right? I don't know if I'd even be able to stay in that house again. Meanwhile, I can go in the forest in the dark by myself, no problem, knowing there's 10-foot tall hairy beings out there and grizzly bears, but there's something about a shaking bed inside of a house that really creeps the living shit out of me. It sounds like you got a handle on most of this, for the most part, though. I'm definitely curious to know of what else it is that you've experienced, and you're keeping close. And that's fine. I appreciate that. Respect that, I mean. But if you ever do feel like sharing it, go ahead and share away with us, all right? I appreciate you sending that in. It's funny, the reach we have here is around the planet. There's people listening from literally around the globe. I'm pretty certain there's people in every single country coming here to listen to all of you. That's big medicine, man. That's big, powerful medicine. Anyway, we're all going to give our prayers and well-being thoughts for you and your family, that you remain safe there. And I don't think there's much advice I can give you that you don't already know. And if you want to email us back again, please do. Especially if you learn something new and significant that you feel has helped you and may help somebody else, all right? No, I mean, you just helped a lot of people just by being honest here and sharing your truth. That helps huge. Man, there's so much dust getting whipped around in here. I got my heater on. Oh, I got a lot of stuff to do in here to get this room ready. Now, who else? What is next? This is titled UFO in Southeast Oklahoma. No shortage of shit going on in Oklahoma. Hi, Steve. This took place November 7th, 2023 in the Ouachita Mountains of southeast Oklahoma. Ouachita. Ouachita. We've heard that name multiple times. I'm a 46-year-old woman. With me were my two daughters, aged 21 and 15. We're out that evening walking our dog. Beautiful clear sky. All of a sudden they both stop and are staring up. It happened so fast. I asked what they were looking at and they said, a UFO. It took me a while to see it. I was looking too high. This thing was right there, right above a tree, maybe 20 yards in front of us. Holy shit. The reason I didn't see it, and what surprised me the most, was it was completely dark. No light, none. It was above this tree, moving very slowly. The bottom of the craft was rotating. It was dark gray and metallic. The feeling it gave me surprised me too. I'd always thought that if I had an experience like this, it would terrify me, and I wouldn't be able to handle it. Instead, I was filled with absolute awe and amazement. This thing was incredible. I wanted the experience to go on forever. I also had another feeling. I knew somehow, absolutely knew, something was going to happen that night. I told my girls, well, someone's getting abducted later, in a joking way after it was gone and we walked home. I didn't realize how right I was. That night, I vividly remember sitting up in my bed and my bedroom door starting to open. Let me read that one more time a little smoother. That night, I vividly remember sitting up in bed and my bedroom door starting to open, and then I, quote, fell, end quote, from maybe a couple inches back on my bed. Has anyone else encountered anything similar in this area? Are these things manipulating our emotions? Even after whatever happened that night, I was so not scared and instead fascinated by this experience. That's not normal. The idea of this terrified me beyond words until it happened. Since that day, all I do is stare at the sky wanting to see it again. I can't tell this to people I know. Who would believe or understand it? Thank you for giving me a voice, Steve. It's too easy. It's too easy. Thanks for writing that in. A lot of people see the same thing you describe in the sky, and from what I understand from people looking into things, but at the same time saying, okay, well, guess what? But don't say anything to anybody, but guess what? God, I get that so much. But from what I understand from people looking into that topic of up there is, from allegedly, that's where the missing people are going. That's what I'm hearing. That's what I'm gathering. I've listened to some Sean Ryan podcasts, had some very interesting people on there, government, military guys who firsthand allegedly witnessed a flying craft sitting off of the ground with these real bad ass military contractor types rifling people onto there from a third world country that was being shredded apart from something. But anyway, then what's the other word in the street lately is the majority of the things that we are seeing in the sky are human-made. It's the word in the street, but not all. It's a whole another big, huge, deep rabbit hole, right? The rabbit holes just keep going on and on and on. Do I need the government to tell me anything? Nope. God, no. What we need is for each other to tell each other everything. That's what we need. That's what we're doing. That's a crazy ass experience, man. Crazy. Thanks for sending that in. I hope you stay safe. I hope you stay safe. Now, what else do we got? All right. It's got word I gotta go. Gotta go a little early here, so I gotta get a few balls rolling and finally connect with all the people I needed to connect with later on today and get all those other balls rolling. But I gotta go. What's his name? Billy Carson. I shared his interview on the Sean Ryan podcast in the community page on my YouTube channel. And he speaks of atoms, energy. I'll leave it at that. He shares a lot in that conversation. This man's got is a very big source of knowledge. He's been doing a lot of digging for a long time, and he knows what's going on in a lot of different topics that I'm not that familiar with. But one thing he did mention was what he knew about atoms and energy and how they form, act, react. And what he shares, may play a big part with a big missing puzzle piece here, fitting in with this dominating topic we talk about mostly here. All right? So if you are avidly seeking out various missing puzzle pieces for your puzzle, that's a good one, good place to go. The Sean Ryan podcast with pretty sure his first name is Billy Carson. I don't have the internet in here on my phone. My Starlink I got on the shop broke probably from the snow when we were gone. I got to go up there and tend to that, and it's pouring rain still. But anyway, there you go. Check that out on my community page is the share I posted there with the Sean Ryan podcast, and listen to that. Read what I put in that post, because I put the timestamp of what will be quite relevant possibly to our missing puzzle pieces here, okay? Hope it made sense. I'll be back again. Always I will be back until I can't. You got some information you want to share with the world through me, share my story at howtohunt.com. It'll get shared word for word. All right? I'll be back.